It was a Friday evening in early June, the kind of warm Florida night when kids stay out late and neighbors sit on porches checking in on each other. In a quiet cluster of quadplex apartments in Ocala, children were doing what children do, playing basketball in the street, running in the grassy field, laughing. But by 9:01 p.m., a 35-year-old mother of four named Ajike or AJ Owens lay dying on the grass outside her neighbor's front door. She had been shot through the door, and her 10-year-old son was standing right beside her when the bullet hit. In today's episode of Crisis and Consequences, we're telling the story of AJ Owens, who she was, what happened to her, who pulled the trigger, and what the legal aftermath revealed about racism and the deadly consequences of Florida's Stand Your Ground law.
Welcome to Crisis and Consequences, a true crime podcast with a purpose. We dive into murder stories and the complicated humans behind them, blending storytelling, dark humor, and real conversation. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast contains dark, troubling, and explicit content.
Hi.
Hi.
You came back. Welcome to Crisis and Consequences, everybody. I'm Charity.
And I'm KB.
And you're back for more.
I'm back for more.
And you're back for more.
Yes.
And we're grateful you're back for more. This one is recent, and it is rough. And I'll get into it now. But first, any crises or news or updates you want to share?
No, I'm good.
Besides putting
it's stuff like this, whenever we get into these stories, and that's where, like, even last time, like, the crisis I have are, I mean, can we even call them crisis, technically? No. So, how about you?
I mean, besides my back hurting and being a little old lady some days, not really. I'm just excited to go see my new deck. Yeah. The guy texted me, like, it's all done, and he sent me the final. So we've been living in this house for 18 years, always thinking it was the temporary house, so we didn't put a whole lot into it. Yeah. And now it's like, after going through everything we went through with my mother-in-law and downsizing her, we don't want to do that to our kids. Right. So we're just going to stay in this house. It's the downsize house.
Yeah, it's fine.
And so we want to make it how we want it. Mm-hmm. So we're doing a lot of work on the house, and I'm living on this deck for the next 9 months. Yeah. Well, maybe not 9, but 6. Yeah. I'm so excited. So
I wish it was 9. That'd be a much better growing season.
I mean, we do have a really warm spring so far, so maybe April, May, June.
As long as summer doesn't, like,
it'll be 6 months at least.
Super hot. Yeah. Like, that's.
So I'll be out there. I've got the hot side of the deck because that's where I like to sit. And then there's the shady side of the deck where everybody else likes to sit. So, and then we have the new front porch built. So if ever, like, because the deck is actually on the east side of the house. So for most of the day, it's getting that south sun. Yeah. But then in the afternoon, it's on the front part of my house. So I've got this big porch out there, and I love it. Perfect. I love it.
That's how ours is the opposite. Our front porch faces the east. And then in the evenings, the sun is in the back. Yeah. So it's lovely. We have a huge sunshade that comes down. Yeah. Like where our back patio is, just because it's during the summer, we like to grill and eat outside and whatnot. And as enjoyable and as much as we love the sun, when it is starting to set and it is in your face. Yeah. Yeah. It's.
So, I mean, that's my new thing. I can't do anything else like go out to restaurants or, go out and have social time because I'm really broke now. But I'm really excited about this deck. So.
Well, enjoy.
And I don't have to stain it ever again. So.
Oh, it's that kind.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. I'm so over staining.
Yeah. Oh, I don't blame you. Over
it. Uh-huh. Well, are you ready to talk about AJ?
I am.
And more so, like, okay, so it was a snowy day. My husband and I were, I think this was on Netflix, and we were watching, I kind of queued up a few, and there was this documentary called, I think it was called A Perfect Neighbor. I do have it later, so if I didn't get that quite right. And normally, like, movies and they don't stick with me. Mm-hmm. Like, my kids and my husband, they can quote lines out of movies and stuff like that, and they'll just never they don't stick with me very rarely. Those are just classics that maybe do. But this one, it was a documentary, and it was a documentary comprised of mostly body cam footage, police body cam footage.
Interesting.
And it pulls from some other sources too. But they were able to get this through a big FOIA request and go through it, and it portrays this story in a way that I just can't tell you how moved I was by this story and the storytelling, because the telling's being done by real life people in the throes of what is going on. Yeah. So you see their raw emotion, you see what they're enduring at the hands of this neighbor, and it's hard not to hate this neighbor. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you right now, she is not a likable character. She is not a sympathetic character at all. At all. And it's also very evident there's some serious type of mental illness there mm-hmm. that was unchecked or untreated, and it created this dynamic in this neighborhood that was just really untenable and uncomfortable for so many of the neighbors. And so when I tell you this story, and then like what led up to what happened to AJ Owens, it's just tragic on all fronts. And I get invested in movies. I'm always trying to figure things out. But because this was real life, mm-hmm. I was in full on activist mode, like, which was new for me. Yeah. Like, I just, like, this only better have one outcome. And, you know, when you think about like race situations and stuff, I'm like, if they let this woman off, like,
you're like, I'm headed down there.
Seriously, I was just so fired up by it in a way I just have not been. And I think it's because it was real people. It wasn't scripted, or it wasn't movie based on
it wasn't
real life.
Reenacted either. Like sometimes that doesn't do it.
And I think that was it, because it was also, you know, usually in documentaries you've got a narrator that's talking to blah 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 blah, right? Yeah. It's still a story.
Right, it separates it.
This, you're in it.
Yeah.
And to see the expressions on these children's faces and her children's faces and these neighbors and what this did.
There was no acting.
There was no acting. Oh, it was so beautifully done for such a tragic story mm-hmm. that didn't have to happen.
Well, and hopefully this is the kind of story where when people see this, it's like maybe they can learn from it. I don't know.
And this is, what did I say? Okay, 2023. I think the other thing that really blew my mind about this is that what does it say about our country that this happened in 2023? I heard nothing about it. Is it that this kind of shit is so commonplace now that you just got to pick which shooting you're paying attention to at any given time? But I mean, anyway, I'll get into it.
Well, but that's where I'm like, I think it's a little bit to do with like the way that the media chooses to put certain news out there.
This one had a ton of media coverage.
And then there's also like, I think our country is, people have access to, anyway.
Are we too overloaded to care? Are we too overloaded to find things because we have so much information? Are we apathetic? What is it? I mean,
it's probably...
Remember the days when you actually had to tune in for the news? You had to be intentional about it to try to stay up to date on current affairs, whether they're local or global. And like, it was just a time of day after dinner, you'd watch the news or whatever. And it wasn't hitting you all day. But anyway.
Well, and I think that desensitizes people.
So you have to let me know as I tell you this if you'd heard about this story at all. Okay.
Well, so far, no.
Okay. So before she became a headline, AJ Owens, so it's Ajike Chantrell, was just simply known as AJ. She was about 30. She was 35 years old, single mom of 4 kids in Ocala, Florida, which is this mid-sized city about 80 miles northwest of Orlando, and known more for like horse farms and retirees than like national headlines, right? Mm-hmm. So AJ had 4 children: Isaac, Israel, who, if I refer to Izzy, that's who I'm talking about, not your Izzy. Africa, and Titus. And they ranged in ages from 3 years old to 12 years old at the time of her death. And her world, like by every account, it revolved around these kids. They were just a beautiful family. Mm-hmm. These kids were the most adorable things you've ever seen. I mean, they would just melt your heart. So she worked as a manager at a local McDonald's franchise, and she would had that flexibility to shuffle her schedule around to make it to like sports practices and school events and things like that. I mean, she was just there for her kids. She was the team mom for the kids' football and cheerleading teams. And her own mother put it another way, quote, "She was super mom. She was the football mom. She worked hard to provide a better life for them," end quote. So she's raising her own children. She's working hard to give them, good schooling, sports lessons, dance, gymnastics. She rarely missed anything like a practice. She volunteered at the school. And they lived in this neighborhood called the Quail Run neighborhood, which is just a working class neighborhood of like rental quadplexes in this town. She was also described by those who knew her as fiercely protective, as most mamas are. Someone messes with her kids, she's going to show up for them. And that instinct would end up costing her her life. So we're going to go to the night of June 2nd, 2023. And to understand what happened on that night, I'm going to do my best to help you understand Susan Louise Lawrence, and the 2+ years of escalating tension that preceded this terrible shooting. And like I said already, you're not going to like her. Mm-hmm. There's not a single thing to like about this woman. So she's 58 years old at the time. What did I say? AJ was 35, right? Yeah. So she's 58 years old at the time of the shooting, living alone in a unit. So I don't know if you've ever seen those kind of like planned communities where you've got, house, and then there's a big green space. And that's kind of like where it's expected. There's area for kids to play.
Common areas.
Yeah. Well, she'd been renting in this neighborhood for about 3 years and worked from home. I don't quite know what she did. I never could figure that out. One time
Susan.
Okay. And one time she's like, Dr. Susan Lawrence. I'm like,
well, we've learned that gets...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people can
get their doctorate.
Acquire PhDs that... But this open space, like, she was super territorial over this open space because it was right outside her patio. Mm-hmm. She thought it was hers. Oh. It's my property, no trespassing. This woman went and actually got staked signs that say no trespassing. And so the kid... Rental? Yep.
No.
Yep, she was adamant. Meanwhile, the guy that lived across the green space, so AJ and her family lived across the street from Susan Lawrence. And then the gentleman who lived across the green space, so on her side of the street, he's like, no, the kids can play here. It's not mine. I don't mind. It's not my yard for my unit. It's common space. It's what it's for. But she was like really, and I mean, I've had noisy neighbors in the past. I understand how frustrating noisy neighbors can be when you value peace and quiet, but she took this to a whole new level. So multiple residents tell NBC News that Lawrence had this, and you could see it on police body cam footage on this documentary. She has this consistent documented history of targeting children in the area. She's really after these kids, wanting them to behave, wanting them to be quiet, wanting them to just disappear. But particularly, it seemed like her aggression was directed towards the black children in the neighborhood, whether it was simply because of proximity to black families or something deeper.
And I'm assuming she was not a mom herself ever. Do we know?
I don't believe she ever had kids. Okay. But Susan, for the record, was very, very white. They said she would record the kids on her phone, which we did see some of that footage in the documentary. She taunt them with racial slurs. She would call the police repeatedly with what neighbors described as frivolous complaints. And they were. The cops, you could just see them like, oh my God, I'm going to deal with this again. Mm-hmm. And then they have to go their obligatory talking to the neighbors and be like, hey, we get it. Can you just stay away from her? Because, we don't want this to escalate. She allegedly waved guns at them while they played. She would even set them up. So the documentary was called A Perfect Neighbor. I'm glad my memory did not fail me. So she'd do this thing like she had a parking spot for her unit, but once in a while she'd go park the truck in the street, and then she'd hit to make it go off as if someone's messing with it. And then she'd accuse the kids of messing with it. And
Does she not have like a TV or some books to read, or what's her problem? I mean, my goodness.
I actually don't recall seeing a TV in her apartment.
Because you've got to have a lot of time on your hands.
She's on the computer. Oh, no. Oh, I don't remember TV.
Anyway.
I really don't know, but I don't remember seeing one. And there was also like one time she was accusing the kids of trying to like put their dog in the back of her truck. And the dog in question, these were little kids, was this giant poodle, this giant black poodle. And so when the cops came and said, hey, she says your kids are trying to, and they just started laughing. They're like, they're not picking this dog up to lift it up over into the bed of a, like, it was just insanity. One neighbor, Phyllis Wills, who lived, I think, right next to where AJ was for about 15 years, she was pretty direct. She's like, everybody in this neighborhood has feuded with this lady over our kids. Every time they even went on that patch of grass over there, she'd be like, get off my lawn. She'd use every slur you can imagine. She'd wave guns at them. I mean, she's just batshit. So arrest affidavits and law enforcement records would later confirm that Lawrence admitted to using racial slurs against Owens' children, including the N-word. We saw it on the interrogation room footage in the documentary, referring to kids as black slaves. She told the detectives she doesn't remember using the N-word, but if she did, she was always taught that it was reflective of poor behavior, so that's what made it appropriate. I mean, you can imagine the number of breaths I had watching this thing. I'm just like, are you hearing what's coming out of your mouth?
No,
lady.
And even if she did, she's obviously that.
And then I watched an interview with her. Some reporter from Florida went. Well, no, I won't spoil that. Have me come back to that. Okay. Ooh, almost just blew it. Okay, I don't want to blow it. So according to detailed reporting by the Ocala Gazette, she told one of the children, this isn't the Underground Railroad, referencing the field next to her house.
Lady.
So likable? Okay.
She's got some issues. Anyway.
She's got some serious issues. A lot of 911 calls got released to this documentary team, and they aired a lot of like her calls to dispatch. One of them, she said, is there anything I can do with these people? You could just hear the bias and Then the film, like I said, it was built almost entirely from police body cam footage, security video, 911 call recordings, and the detective interrogation room footage, which was really, really revealing. And again, her family, AJ's family's attorneys obtained all of this through FOIA requests, and it tells a really amazing story. So her complaints, Susan's complaints to police, begin as early as January of 21, and by June of 23, deputies from the Marion County Sheriff's Office had responded roughly 6 documented calls involving Lawrence and Owens' household specifically, not just other people in the neighborhood. The central complaint was always the same. The children are in this grass next to her apartment and they're loud or whatever. But what's really important to understand is what those police visits actually revealed. Neighbors would pull deputies aside and tell them the truth, like that she's the aggressor. Mm-hmm. She's calling on us, but she's the aggressor. One resident told a deputy during a 2022 visit, I will say that this lady is always messing with people's kids. She's always trying to record the kids, always talking crap. And from what I saw, again, on the documentary, I recognize footage is usually chosen for a documentary, possibly to show a certain side, but you can tell even the cops think that she's the problem.
Right.
It's very obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, most of the cops, I don't think I saw any cop of color. So they're not taking the white woman's side. They're like, she's crazy. Even one, there's a couple swear words where they're walking away from her like fucking batshit, right? They're just like, she's just hard to deal with.
Well, somebody that's what I'm saying, like there's some deep-rooted issues going on there that she's pulling up stuff like the things that she's saying, and then it's like attacking children specifically in that way. Like, you are a grown adult. Like, she's got some deep issues.
Yeah. And I saw there was footage from her cell phone because she would record the kids, and they're taunting her. But, I mean, she's been acting like an asshole to them.
Yeah.
And so kids are going to be kids. It was funny. I mean, they're like sticking their butts out and,
they're just out there trying to play. I mean,
and here she goes, and let's get her riled up again. But
kids are not always going to be respectful. I mean, there have been times where, like, we've even been at public pools or whatever, and There's this one incident last summer. This kid, like, his little sister, I think it was his little sister, she's like playing with this like little ladybug, whatever. And she's like, look, it's so young. It's just like little, like 3 or 4. And he's like, oh yeah, kills it and smashes it. How do you like your fucking ladybug now? Like, I mean, cussing at her. And she's just crying.
How old was he?
Probably 12.
Jeez.
And so I'm sitting over there watching it, and I'm just fuming. And I'm like, do I get involved? Where's the mom? Where's the parent? Where's the parent? Like, no parent is here, right?
Wow.
And so I went over, and I was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, you need to apologize to her right now. I was like, do you not see that she is devastated by what you just did? And I was like, what compelled you to do that? And I was like, shame. I mean, I don't even remember what I said, but I was like, shame on you. Do better. Get out of here. Go home.
Yeah.
Go home to wherever your mom is or whoever's in charge of you. Get out of here.
Someone needed to have that talk with this woman.
But that's where it's like sometimes when you're seeing them, but kids are going to be naughty sometimes.
And I'm not saying these kids were naughty.
And it's okay to correct them.
They were playing. They were genuinely playing.
There is no way. Well, what I just gave as an example was not a kid playing. He was just being a little jerk.
Yeah.
But he needed to go home. That's okay. Go ahead and tell him to go home. Or call the mom and have a conversation and be like, this is what they're doing. To taunt them back and to say horrible things.
Right.
To wave guns at them, threatening them. Not okay.
Yeah.
Ever.
Oh, just wait.
Ugh.
There's more. Okay. So after this previous confrontation with AJ Owens in 22, Lawrence purchased not 1, but 2 handguns. Because, one for each hand, maybe? I don't know. No, it's bad. And then she'd been quietly researching Florida's Stand Your Ground law, as investigators revealed. Yes. So Florida's Stand Your Ground law, which was enacted in I do this all the time, 2005, 25, allows individuals to use deadly force in self-defense without a duty to retreat if they reasonably believe it is necessary to prevent imminent death, great bodily harm, or forcible felony. It applies in any place a person has a legal right to be. It's like that castle doctrine. Mm-hmm. So she had researched this before the events I'm going to tell you about. So that Friday evening, again, evening began as they so often had before, with the kids are playing outside and she's getting agitated. Sun goes down. Owen's son Isaac, 12, and Israel, 10, they're outside playing. Isaac was in the street playing basketball. Izzy was in the grassy field adjacent to Susan's apartment, and he'd left his iPad on the ground in the field, but it's her property, right? So you can't leave stuff.
The cops, I'm sorry, I keep asking, but did they ever specify, lady, you keep saying that these kids are on your property. This is common area. It's not your property.
No, because it's a civil thing. It's not a law enforcement thing. That's a civil thing. That's the landlord. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cops, they're law enforcement. They can't just say covenants or HOAs or anything like that. They can't get into any of that.
Hey, Susan.
Yeah.
Get over yourself.
So Izzy goes to retrieve the iPad. Lawrence comes out, and she's not happy that it's there. What happened next was documented by the children's accounts and corroborated by witnesses, but she picks up the tablet. Some accounts say she kept it, and others say she broke it. And I see about an equal amount of both, so I'm not if she kept it and broke it or what happened. But when Isaac approached her on behalf of his brother and asked for it back, she threw it, and it hit Izzy in the foot. And then she begins swinging an umbrella at the boys like they're wild animals or something, and she's fighting off. And she also hurls a pair of roller skates that they left near her unit at them. So now the kids go home across the street and tell their mom.
Of course.
So, of course, there's no way this mom's going to let this go. I mean, her kids were just under threat of bodily harm. One of them got hit with a projectile, thing. So she went and confronted Susan at her door, not with a weapon, not with the police, but as a mom defending her kids. And so she brings Izzy, the 10-year-old, with her. and she knocks on the door. She's calling for Susan to come outside so they could talk about this iPad situation.
Right.
If she has it, give it back. Or if she, whatever, if she broke it, she's going to be responsible for it. Like I can imagine that's probably
Absolutely.
the context. So she's outside
knocking
on the door. Meanwhile, 8:45, Susan already calls 911. Wait, let me see. What time did she go over there? Because I think it's before she's knocking on the door. Okay. Yep. 911 call. In her call, she claimed the kids were trespassing, screaming, yelling, and that she feared for her life. And then she told the dispatcher, his mom's going to come out and wait for the officer and say, oh my God, I was threatening her kids, which just isn't true. So this is happening while the kids are running home to tell their mom what had just happened. So I find that really interesting because she was in that phone call predicting and preempting, almost like she's setting it up.
And it kind of reminds me of a child, like a child who is in a situation, does something wrong, and then hurries up and runs to mom first to say, hey, so-and-so did this, that. They're trying to get ahead of it so that way they look like the good.
I'm going to spin it.
Yep.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's something with this lady, like, that's deeper.
You've got to watch this.
Yeah.
You hear her voice. You hear how she talks to dispatch. When you see her in the police interrogation room, I'll mimic her in a minute.
Okay. Well, and that's when you said, like, there's definite mental.
There is definitely a superiority complex. She is someone that does not believe she should be in a quadplex in a middle or like working class neighborhood. So there is some kind of chip on her shoulder there, at least in my assessment.
Yeah.
I think she has a problem being there. And so it's everybody else's fault. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know her story. She was an unknown commodity. No one wants to dig into her because she's not likable.
I don't, yeah.
All right, so deputies were already en route when at approximately 9:01, so what is that, 6 minutes later? 7 minutes later, a second call comes in, and gunfire had been reported. Susan had retrieved her .38 caliber Remington handgun, walked to her front door, which was closed and locked with no window. It's a solid-ass door, and she fires a single shot through that door. The bullet strikes AJ in the upper chest, and her son was right beside her, her 10-year-old. Neighbors across the street heard the crack of the shot, and then they heard screaming, her kid screaming. One resident ran outside after hearing her kid cry that they shot his mom, and then that neighbor again began performing CPR until first responders arrived. AJ was... I already know how this is going to end. She didn't make it. So from Lawrence's 911 call ending to the moment she fired, investigators would later calculate that less than 2 minutes had passed. I've got one over here. Yeah. I probably have so many
Tucked into the chair.
Kleenexes stuck in the cushion. Marion County Sheriff's Office arrived to find AJ lying and dying on the grass. They found Susan inside. She didn't even come out. They had to really scream at her to get her outside. She told them she'd acted in self-defense, that Owens had been pounding aggressively on her door, and that she feared Owens was going to break it down and kill her. She was also trying to say the door frame had been compromised in a previous altercation. And here's where I started getting
mad. Yeah.
Yes, because she was not arrested that night. And I'm like, wait. Did they cut it out? Like, what's happening?
How could they not have arrested her that night?
Just wait. You're going to get it in a minute. So she's placed in the back of a deputy's cruiser. I'm baffled by this, too. They let her keep her cell phone in the back of the cruiser for 2 hours, where she had access to security camera footage for her house. And during that time, they did go and analyze it later after they realized their screw up. They say there doesn't appear to be anything deleted, like any deleted footage that they can find. But whatever. Sheriff Billy Woods held a press conference and told the public that investigators needed time to review Florida's Stand Your Ground statute before making an arrest. He acknowledged that he might not personally like the law, but that he had to follow it. The community explodes. Protesters start gathering outside of Marion County Judicial Center. State's Attorney William Gladson urged patience, explaining that investigators were still processing physical evidence, then the 911 recordings, the body cam footage, and witness accounts. And 4 long days after the shooting, on June 6th of 23, Susan Lawrence was finally arrested. And in the meantime, they'd have to give her a police escort to go back to get clothing or whatever from her home, because neighbors probably wanted to kick her ass. So detectives finally tell her that she's going to be arrested. And so they've got her in the interrogation room, and they're kind of first giving her updates, and the camera's right down on her head, right? And so they finally tell her, well, we're going to be arresting you. And the whole time she's telling the story about what happened, she'd be just and she'd
clutching her pearls.
Yes. And it was so fake. It was just fake. It was staged. She was acting. This is how someone who just shot somebody through a solid door is supposed to act.
Devastated. First of all, I would never shoot someone through a solid door. I hope I would never do something like that. But if I ever, even if it was
it's a locked door,
even if it was an intruder, if I ever shot someone, I don't know if I could just be
oh well.
I would be devastated. To take somebody else's life.
No, the only time she really showed any emotion was when it had to do with her. Okay, so now they tell her, well, Miss Lawrence, we're going to arrest you. And she's just no. And they're yeah, this is going to happen. You need to stand up. No, I just can't do that. You can see they're looking at each other
You're gonna
get arrested. This is going to happen. No, you don't understand. I just cannot do that. And then she's I don't feel well. Oh, I don't feel well. She's just putting on this show, and I'm just freaking pick her up out of the chair and arrest her.
We will take you by force, or you can get
I was really hoping to see them take her down, get her up, and do it. She ended up getting up on her own, so I didn't get that pleasure of seeing that. But anyway, so she gets arrested. She's charged with manslaughter with a firearm, despite the preemptive call, which I think is pretty freaking
telling,
wrong. And the fact that she was not in danger when she fired that weapon.
No.
Manslaughter. So before her arrest, detectives, I thought this was pretty cool. They presented her with a notepad, and they said, look, I'm sure you feel terrible about what you did. So why don't you write? We can't let you talk to the family, but you can write a letter to them. And I think because they get intel, right? They get something psychologically, whatever from it. And so she wrote, and literally she thinks about it. She picks up the thing because they're gone. They're not there. And you should see her mannerisms when they're not in the room versus when they are in the room. Ugh. And she writes this thing. I'm so sorry for your loss. I never meant to kill your mother. I was terrified your mom was going to kill me. I shot out of here. I. Moments later, she just kind of puts the thing on the floor, and then she's handcuffed and taken out. And then you can see the detective come in after the lights are off and pick up the room, and he shows it to the camera. This is what this letter says. So Owens' family, understandably, they start pushing hard for a second-degree murder charge. The state attorney, Gladson, at the time, explained his reasoning publicly that to prove second-degree murder, the state has to show a depraved mind, evidence of hatred, spite, ill will, or evil intent at the moment of killing.
Check.
I think so. He argued that while Susan's actions were, in his words, deplorable, extreme recklessness alone, even firing blindly through a door, was legally insufficient to meet that standard under Florida case law. And so, of course, a lot of people in the community did not agree with this. The trial began in August of 24, more than a year after the murder, and it was held in Marion County Circuit Court before Judge Robert Hodges. So she's now 60. She's pleading not guilty. Her defense team argued she acted out of genuine, reasonable fear that AJ's aggressive pounding on the door and the sheer size of her, because she was not a petite girl. I mean, she was really tall, 290 pounds, beautiful woman, but
still.
If she wanted to come through that door, she probably could have come through that door, and she didn't.
Right.
But she was, younger and stronger and all the things than this old lady, but justified her belief that she was in mortal danger. Defense attorney Amanda Sizemore told the jury she had a split second to make a decision whether or not to fire her weapon. And that's bullshit. She could have gone to another room. She could have put more.
Yeah,
she could have
gone
called
to another room, locked herself in the bath, like something.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do when I was scared. I'd lock myself in the bathroom with like the
bathrooms
hairspray.
are good.
Anyway, but like
hairspray and a lighter,
like that until the cops get there.
Yes. And she already called them, so they knew she knew they were on their way.
They were, like there
was no excuse.
Oh.
None. I think I have it in here later. Remind me if I don't say something about the door again.
Okay.
Because I don't want to repeat myself.
You had said something about it. She had said that it was like something was wrong with the door frame.
Yeah, she tried to say there was an altercation. This was something different, but before, and the door didn't quite get fixed, so she thought she could get through the door. But if she wanted to get through that door, she would have gotten through the door.
She probably could have kicked it down.
So the prosecution counters. Susan had known police were already on their way. She was behind a locked, closed door. There was no evidence AJ was attempting to break through it. She had gone into a separate room, retrieved one of the handguns, returned to the living room area, to the door, and fired through it. She had time. She had options. She used none of them. The jury was all white, 6 people, so much smaller jury than what we see here. Trial lasted 1 week. Deliberations took 2.5 hours. This is where I'm really fired up. First of all, it took them 4 days to arrest her. If they do not convict this woman because she's white, yes. On August 16th, 2024, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty of manslaughter with a firearm. And after the verdict was read, Susan showed no emotion. She kind of went, oh. Across the courtroom, of course, Owens' family wept and were, at least we've achieved some sort of justice. So November 25th, 24, Judge Hodges sentences Susan to 25 years in prison, 5 years short of the maximum. She was 60 years old at sentencing. Her earliest possible release date is April of 2048, when she'd be in her mid-80s. And Judge Hodges was direct about his reasoning. He said he found the shooting completely unnecessary. He noted that Susan had already called law enforcement, that knew they were en route. She was behind a locked door. She had additional options. She could have retreated further into the home. She could have put more locked doors between herself and AJ. Instead, she went and got a gun, came back to the door, and fired through it. And he said at the time she fired the gun through the door, she was safe. And I think that's really important to underscore. At her sentencing hearing, Susan addressed Owens' family directly. Again, I just won't even read it because it's whatever. Pamela Diaz or Diaz, I've heard it both ways, as the mom, AJ's mom. She wasn't having any of it. She says, quote, Susan's apology was a last-ditch attempt to save herself. It wasn't sincere. She never showed remorse. Her remorse, if any, at best, was for herself. And I think that also, yeah. So the weight of this story doesn't rest only on what happened to AJ. It rests on what happened to those 4 kids. And this is just absolutely heartbreaking because the 2 boys were there, right there when it was happening. Izzy stood right beside his mom when she was shot. The older brother, Isaac, realizing what had happened, he's the one who ran for help and called 911. Both boys later blamed themselves.
Of course.
Their grandmother revealed that they had been on an emotional roller coaster, just absolutely consumed with guilt because they couldn't save her. I could see my husband on the corner of my eye. We were both just ugly sobbing. It was so, to see on Ring camera footage and see these kids' faces when they're realizing that their mom is shot. They don't know the outcome yet at this point, but it is just heartbreaking. So the 2 little ones were 6 and 3. They didn't even understand why or what's going on. They all live with their grandmother now. In 25 July, the grandma, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Susan Lawrence. And in November of 2025, Lawrence, writing from prison, threatened a countersuit for defamation against her and her 3 children, claiming the kids had lied in their depositions. Oh. She's currently serving her sentence at the Homestead Correctional Institution in Miami-Dade County. She filed an appeal of her conviction in January of 25. I don't have it in here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this now. So I think this is where I got it and why it's not in here, because I watched this after I already put my show notes together. Yeah. I'd watched this interview. So this reporter goes in to do maybe the only interview, because she never talked at the trial. Her attorneys advised her, because she's so unsympathetic. Like,
right, she's terrible.
Nobody's going to like her.
Right.
So they were probably right as far as right to a fair trial. Like, right. You better not open your mouth, lady. So she doesn't. So this reporter gets access to go in and interview her in prison. And I'm thinking, to be fair,
right.
I have really strong opinions. Let me at least go hear her side of things. There's more of this and the clutching of the pearls and all this stuff. Of course. And then talking about how she's absolutely not a racist because she was married to a Muslim man at some point. But it's like, we heard you say these words.
And the way that they were
out
used,
of your mouth.
Yes.
Like, that happened.
Hate. Yeah.
That happened. And then she also talked about how when she contradicted herself. So one point she's saying she was just so terrified and she's holding the gun and just accidentally went off. And then another time she's saying she's aiming at like the upper quadrant of the door. That sounds like an intentional thing to me. Yeah. So she didn't do herself any favors with this interview, but now she's found God. She's leaning into her faith and all that crap that people do when they're in prison. They don't have anything else to do. Yep. But anyway, this woman got me so fired up. And you cannot control who your neighbors are, but there are other ways.
There's so many other ways.
I wish the neighbors would have gone to the landlord.
Something else needed to happen.
You know what? She's a problem. Can you help us? Can you intervene?
Well, someone just simply needed to say, hey, Susan, this is common area. It's not your property.
Yeah.
Stop.
Let's move you. And she said, too, she had, sold a horse or something, which then leads me to that. Remember my theory on her, think she's in this situation she doesn't appreciate being in. I mean, she's not working at McDonald's. She's not a working class,
right.
whatever. So she thinks she's better than everybody in her neighborhood. But she sold a horse and she was going to use that money to move. So she was going to literally be moving 2 weeks later. Then why the hell would you go poke the bear and throw shit at these kids and threaten them?
Well, and the childish behavior to begin with. Of course, the mom went over to talk to her. If my kids were playing, even if it was in somebody else's yard, okay, that they owned, which I would hope they wouldn't. But if my kids did do something horribly wrong, and a person threw something at them, like their iPad, and it hit their foot and kept whatever the situation was, you're not acting like a grown adult.
No.
I'm going to come over and talk to you.
You're throwing someone else's personal property. You can be held accountable for that.
Kids.
I know. I don't think she had kids. I don't think she understood that.
That's why I'm I don't care about Susan, but there's part of me that always, when we hear these stories, that I'm always kind of why do people do the things that they do? Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not touch on that, but that did come out in the trial a little bit. Does not give her an excuse for what she did at all. But there was a couple times the trial touched on her having been abused as a child. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are abused as children and they don't shoot their neighbors through solid doors. Yep. And she probably wasn't abused by a female neighbor. It was a father, I think. So how do you conflate those two things? Mm-hmm. And how does that, oh my God. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's where I'm
I didn't know what we were watching. It just the preview looked interesting. Yeah. Because I thought, a documentary with body cam footage. That just sounds really, I had no idea what we were getting into. And I have never been so sucked into a storyline the way I was with this one. So props, the documentary team, beautifully done. It's tragic that I do remember, because I didn't know that it resulted in a death. Mm-hmm. I literally knew nothing about it. But I remember watching it, and one of the times when the police responded to this neighborhood, and AJ is out of her house, and she's leaning against the back of her car, talking to the cops, and he's just like, "Look, she's difficult, this, that, and the other thing, and she, can you keep your kids on this side of the street to play?" Yeah. Like, they're just trying to keep the peace, right? And she's not fired up. She's not like, I get fired up and feisty. She's not even doing that. She's very calm. She's just like, this is what we're dealing with. Yeah. And then she just leans against the car, and she's like, oh, like she had no options. And I just remember looking at her thinking, A, how beautiful she was, and B, like, she just seemed like someone I would really like. Mm-hmm. And then I went, oh no, I hope nothing bad happens to her. And I said that to my husband. Oh. I didn't know that. Yeah,
because you didn't know.
I had no idea, because I hadn't heard the story. And then I was like, no, not her. Not that it needed to happen to anybody, but I don't know. It's just those things, because they're real people. And I was like, I just developed an immediate affinity for her and went, oh God, I hope nothing bad happens to her. I kind of thought, because it's this old unlikable woman, I kind of thought the storyline was that neighbors like ganged up on this terrible neighbor that was just giving them all grief and being mean to their kids. Like, I had no idea, so it really took me for a ride.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I just keep thinking, like, about all the different ways that all of that could have been completely avoided, and even by, it's like, hey, Susan, move. If it's so bothersome to you.
For that many years, move. Right? 3 years or whatever.
Stop.
Anyway. So,
are you ready to re-enter the workforce or find a career that actually fits? Or maybe you're an employer tired of noisy platforms that miss the mark? Try Focus, a smarter hiring tool that helps you cut through the noise and focus on what matters. Visit focus.work today. That's FOQUS.WORK.
She's bye-bye. She's get to be in prison, and
did she get a long sentence?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not getting out till she's like, if at all, in her 80s. So,
well,
and she looks pretty rough. She was not an attractive.
Yeah.
She did not take good care of herself to begin with. At all.
Yeah. She sounds like a mess.
At all. But now she's like great. Lost a ton of weight, and just prison life is not. It's punishment. Yeah. It's punitive, and she needs to be there.
Give her time to think about how, though I say that, and it sounds to me like she's still. Anyway, I don't want to talk about Susan anymore. She sucks. Yeah. Susan sucks.
I know. I try to be unbiased, but this one, man, I just couldn't. It was. Oh, by the way, South Dakota does have stand your ground laws as well. So I think it's 28 states have similar statutes on the books to that, and but it's not meant to go like research it and then go orchestrate something so that you can test it out.
No,
that's not the point of it.
No,
but that's how she interpreted it. Ooh, I can get rid of this
taken out of context
little problem with, or at least scare the hell out of my neighbors. Then they're going to stay off of my property, my green space. I don't know what she was thinking.
Yeah.
And I've bought 2 weapons. Where do you think this is leading? Where do you think this is leading?
Yeah.
Why would you think that's okay?
Because she's nuts, clearly. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's underlying issues there. She needed some serious help. So
tons of stuff in the show notes if this story, like you, is the first time you've heard of this one. But pretty amazing story.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing it with us. I'm curious to see the documentary too. I'll have to go check it out. So
it is worth a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got.
That's it. All right. Well, that's all, folks.
You get it? Do that again.
That's all, folks. Anyway, thank you for joining us. We bring you these stories as a way to, I don't know, entertain, but it's for a good cause, right?
Yeah.
So
we think so.
Yeah, it's doing good, and more of you are coming along for the ride, and we appreciate that. So don't forget to subscribe. So you never miss an episode.
Bloop. Nope. Yep. And it just downloads automatically.
Absolutely.
And whatever you guys are doing lately, thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
keep sharing it.
It's going up and up and up, and we're just really grateful and excited, and we love it, and we want to hear from you, and you know, anything, ideas,
stories,
corrections, your own stories. We would love to eventually do some listener episodes where we're sharing your stories. And I know I do get the question about, well, what if I don't want my name on it? You know, it can be anonymous. Just say, hey, I'd like this to remain anonymous. We can tell that story without your name.
Absolutely.
Or any identifying information. That's fine. Yep. We deal in anonymous, confidential information on the daily.
All day, every
all day.
So if you have any of those or anything else, send it to hello@crisisandconsequences.com. You can connect with us through our website. And like Charity said earlier, all sources for this episode are on the show notes. And we'll see you next week with a new story.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.